I still remember the first day Emily walked into my office. She carried herself with a kind of fragile strength, the sort that comes only when someone has been hiding their pain for far too long. Her fiancé, Michael, walked beside her, holding her hand tightly as if he was afraid she might slip away. She wore a soft gray sweater, her blonde hair tied back, and even though she was clearly exhausted, her eyes had this quiet fire that caught me off guard. I've been a urologist for more than a decade, and I've treated thousands of patients. But sometimes, one patient's presence changes everything you thought you knew about the boundaries of medicine, of love, of life itself. Emily was 32, just a few years younger than me. She had been dealing with recurring kidney problems that most doctors had brushed off as minor until her condition worsened. By the time she came to me, the tests showed that her kidneys were dangerously close to failing. She tried to stay strong while Michael asked all the questions, his voice sharp with worry, but I noticed how Emily's eyes drifted toward me whenever I spoke, as though she was trying to draw some strength from the steadiness in my voice. That was the first moment I felt the pull. And it terrified me. Doctors aren't supposed to feel that way. We're taught to separate ourselves, to build walls between compassion and desire, to care without crossing lines. But there was something in Emily's quiet courage that disarmed me. When I told her we'd start treatment immediately, her lips curved into the faintest smile, a mixture of gratitude and relief. And for a split second, I let myself imagine what it would feel like if she had smiled at me like that outside the confines of an exam room. I pushed the thought away as quickly as it came. Over the weeks that followed, Emily became a regular part of my life. Her appointments stretched into long conversations, not just about medications and procedures, but about books she loved, the small cafe where she used to write, her dreams of traveling to the coast after she got married. Michael often came with her, always protective, always devoted, but I noticed that when he stepped out to take a phone call or handle something at work, Emily's guard would soften. She would laugh more easily then, her eyes lighting up when she teased me about my terrible handwriting or when I shared some silly story from my residency years. I knew it was dangerous territory. Every doctor knows where the ethical boundaries lie. But sometimes the heart doesn't respect rules, no matter how many years of training you've had drilled into you. One evening, after a particularly long dialysis session, Emily lingered in my office. Michael had been called away unexpectedly, so it was just the two of us. She sat across from me, her face pale from exhaustion, yet still carrying that quiet grace that had drawn me in from the beginning. I handed her a cup of water, and when our fingers brushed, a spark shot through me so intense I had to look away. "Thank you, doctor," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please," I replied, trying to steady myself, "you don't need to thank me. I'm just doing my job." She studied me for a moment, her blue eyes searching mine. "You do more than your job. You care. I can feel it." I swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how loud the silence was in that room. My chest tightened as I realized she wasn't wrong. I did care. More than I should. Before I could respond, she smiled faintly and looked down at her hands, breaking the spell. "Michael says I'm getting stronger. But sometimes I wonder if I'll ever feel like myself again." "You will," I said firmly. "We're fighting this together. You're not alone." Her gaze lifted back to mine, and for a long moment, we just sat there, the weight of unspoken words pressing down on us. I wanted to reach across the desk, to take her hand and tell her everything I was feeling. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I forced myself to stand, to put distance between us, and reminded her that rest was just as important as treatment. But that night, long after I left the hospital, her face lingered in my mind. Her voice, her smile, the way her presence seemed to slip past the walls I'd built around myself, I couldn't shake it. As weeks turned into months, Emily's health wavered like a candle in the wind. Some days, she seemed almost herself again, laughing with Michael, chatting with the nurses, filling the room with a lightness that lifted everyone around her. Other days, She was too weak to stand without help, her body betraying her even as her spirit fought on. And through it all, I found myself caught in a storm of emotions I couldn't control. Watching her with Michael made my chest ache with guilt and longing. He loved her, anyone could see that. And she loved him. Yet in quiet moments, when it was just the two of us, I felt something undeniable passing between us, something that neither of us dared to name. There was one night I'll never forget. Emily had been admitted for a sudden complication, and I stayed long after my shift had ended, monitoring her closely. Michael had gone home to rest, exhausted from weeks of sleepless nights. Around midnight, Emily stirred awake, her eyes finding mine in the dim hospital light. "You're still here," she murmured, her voice weak but touched with something softer. "Of course," I said gently. "I wasn't going to leave you like this." She gave a faint laugh that turned into a cough, and I quickly adjusted her pillows, offering her water. When she settled again, her hand brushed against mine and lingered there. This time, neither of us pulled away. "Sometimes," she whispered, "I feel like you see me in a way no one else does. Not even Michael." Her words cut through me like a blade. I wanted to tell her she was right, that I saw her not just as a patient but as a woman who had become a part of my very soul. But I knew the cost of speaking that truth. So I just held her gaze, letting the silence speak for me. In that fragile, suspended moment, the world outside the hospital walls seemed to disappear. It was just her and me, bound together by something we weren't supposed to feel, something that was both forbidden and undeniable. The next morning, Michael returned, and the spell was broken. He rushed to her bedside, holding her hand, kissing her forehead, his relief pouring out in every gesture. I stepped back, the ache in my chest growing sharper with every passing second. I told myself over and over that this had to stop. That I had to draw the line, for her sake and for mine. But love, once it takes root, doesn't vanish just because it's inconvenient. It grows, it deepens, it defies logic. And with every passing day, I found myself slipping further into a love I knew I could never truly have. Still, I kept fighting for her. Not just as her doctor, but as someone who wanted her to live, to find joy, whether it was with Michael or anyone else. Late nights turned into early mornings, every test, every treatment another chance to give her the life she deserved. I pushed myself harder than ever, determined not to let her down. And through it all, I carried the weight of my secret, knowing that some loves are not meant to be lived out loud, but felt quietly, fiercely, in the spaces between words. Please like and subscribe my channel for more romantic videos.